The auctioneer's gavel struck wood like a death knell, and Delilah Hayes felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces as she stood on that platform in the scorching June heat of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Her wrists bound before her while men called out numbers like she was livestock. The year was 1878, and the world had become a cruel place for a woman with nothing but debts to her name and a dead husband who had gambled away everything she had ever owned, leaving her to pay the price with her very freedom. She kept her chin high despite the tears threatening to spill down her cheeks, her dark auburn hair plastered to her neck with sweat beneath the unforgiving sun. The plaza was packed with men, some curious onlookers, others eager bidders who saw her as property to be purchased and used however they saw fit. Her pale green dress, once beautiful, now hung tattered and stained from 3 days in the town jail where they had kept her after the bank foreclosed on everything, and the judge declared she would be sold to settle her late husband's debts. $100, called a portly merchant with greedy eyes that made Delilah's stomach turn. $150, countered a rancher she recognized from the outskirts of town, a man known for working his ranch hands to the bone. The auctioneer, a thin man with a waxed mustache, grinned widely. "Do I hear 200? This is a fine specimen, gentlemen. Young, strong, can cook and clean and more besides, I would wager." Delilah closed her eyes, praying for mercy from a God who seemed to have abandoned her. Her husband Thomas had died 6 months ago in a saloon brawl, drunk as always, leaving behind nothing but gambling debts and broken promises. She had tried to work, taking in laundry and mending, but it had not been enough to satisfy the creditors who came knocking with increasing frequency, until finally the law had intervened. 200, said the rancher, his voice confident. 250, the merchant shot back, irritation creeping into his tone. The bidding continued to climb, cruel and high, each number another nail in the coffin of Delilah's dignity. She was 22 years old and had believed once in love and kindness and the goodness of people. Thomas had courted her sweetly when she was 18, fresh from her parents' farm in Kansas, and she had believed his promises of a good life in New Mexico territory. Instead, she had gotten 4 years of disappointment, violence when he drank, and now this ultimate humiliation. $300, called a new voice, deep and steady. Delilah opened her eyes and sought out the speaker. He stood at the back of the crowd, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing dusty trail clothes and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face. Something in his voice made her breath catch, though she could not say why. Perhaps it was simply that he did not sound eager or lustful like the others. He sounded almost sad. $350, the rancher countered immediately, clearly not willing to be outbid. $400, the stranger said, stepping forward slightly so she could see him better. He had dark hair that curled slightly at his collar, sun-bronzed skin, and a strong jaw shadowed with several days of stubble. His eyes, when they met hers across the crowded plaza, were a startling blue-gray, like storm clouds over the mountains. The merchant hesitated, calculating. $425, $500, the stranger said without missing a beat, his gaze never leaving Delilah's face. A murmur went through the crowd. $500 was a substantial sum, more than most cowboys made in a year. The rancher scowled and shook his head, stepping back. The merchant looked like he had swallowed something sour but also retreated. No one else seemed willing to go higher. The auctioneer looked delighted. $500. Do I hear $550, $525? No. Going once, going twice. He brought the gavel down with a sharp crack. Sold to the gentleman in the back for $500. Delilah felt her knees weaken. At least the stranger did not look cruel, though she knew that meant little. Men could hide their true nature behind handsome faces and kind eyes. She had learned that lesson with Thomas. The stranger made his way through the crowd, which parted for him. Up close, he was even taller than she had thought, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and strong hands that looked capable of hard work. He could not have been much older than 26 or 27. He pulled a leather pouch from his belt and counted out the money to the auctioneer in gold coins that glinted in the sunlight. "She is all yours, mister," the auctioneer said cheerfully, pocketing the money. "Bill of sale right here." He thrust a paper at the stranger, who took it without looking at it. Instead, the stranger climbed the steps to the platform where Delilah stood. Her heart hammered in her chest as he approached. She forced herself not to flinch or cower. She would face whatever came with her head high. He stopped in front of her, those storm cloud eyes searching her face. Then, to her utter shock, he pulled a knife from his belt. She gasped and stepped back, but he did not advance on her. Instead, he reached for her bound wrists. "Hold still," he said quietly. "I am going to cut these ropes." She froze, not understanding, as he sawed through the rough hemp that had rubbed her wrists raw. The bonds fell away and she brought her hands up, rubbing feeling back into them, staring at him in confusion. He took the bill of sale from where he had tucked it under his arm and held it out to her. When she did not take it immediately, he pressed it into her hands. "This says I bought you," he said in that same quiet voice, "which means I can do whatever I want with you, according to the law." Delilah braced herself for what was coming next, her stomach churning. "So I am setting you free," he finished. "You do not belong to me or anyone else. You are your own person." For a moment she could not process his words. They made no sense. Men did not spend $500 just to set someone free. "What?" she whispered. "You are free," he repeated. He pulled out the knife again, and she watched in amazement as he methodically cut the bill of sale into pieces, letting them flutter to the platform like strange snow. "Go wherever you want. Do whatever you want. You do not owe me anything." "I do not understand," Delilah said, her voice shaking. "Why would you do this?" Something painful flickered across his face. "Because nobody should be bought and sold like property. Because you deserve better than this. Because—" He trailed off, then shook his head. "It does not matter why. You are free. That is all that matters." He turned to leave, and Delilah found herself calling out, "Wait!" He paused, looking back at her. "What is your name?" "Asher Vaughn," he said after a moment. "I am Delilah Hayes." She clutched the torn pieces of paper in her hands. "I have nowhere to go, no money, no—" She felt the tears coming now and could not stop them. "You have given me freedom, but I do not know what to do with it." Asher's expression softened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out several bills which he held out to her. "Here. This should be enough to get you a room at the boarding house for a month and some meals. Beyond that, I am sure you can find work. A woman with your courage does not need much more than a chance." She took the money with trembling fingers, overwhelmed by his kindness. "Why are you doing this?" "Really?" He was silent for a long moment, his eyes distant. "I had a sister once. She died 3 years ago when she was 19. She was in a situation not unlike yours, trapped by circumstances beyond her control, and no one helped her. No one gave her a chance. I could not save her, but maybe I can help you. Maybe that means something." "I am so sorry," Delilah whispered, her heart aching for him. "So am I." He tipped his hat to her. "Good luck, Miss Hayes. I hope you find whatever you are looking for." He walked away then, disappearing into the crowd that was already dispersing now that the spectacle was over. Delilah stood on the platform, watching him go, clutching the money and the torn paper, feeling like the earth had shifted beneath her feet. She did not see Asher Vaughn again for 3 days. She took his advice and got a room at the boarding house run by a kindly Mexican woman named Rosa, who asked no questions and served hot meals that Delilah ate with tears streaming down her face because she had not realized how hungry she had been. She bought herself a new dress, simple but clean, and began asking around town about work. The problem was that everyone in Santa Fe knew about the auction. They knew she had been bought by the tall cowboy and then set free, and the gossip ran wild. Some said Asher had bought her as a mistress and tired of her quickly. Others said she had run away from him. Still others whispered darker things. No one wanted to hire a woman with such a scandalous reputation. By the fourth day, Delilah was growing desperate. Her money would not last forever, and she needed employment. She was sitting in the plaza, trying to figure out her next move when a shadow fell across her. "Miss Hayes." She looked up to find Asher Vaughn standing before her, his hat in his hands. Her heart did an unexpected flip at the sight of him. "Mr. Vaughn," she said, standing quickly, "I did not expect to see you again." "I heard you have been having trouble finding work," he said, looking uncomfortable. "The whole town is talking." Delilah felt her cheeks burn with shame. "Yes. It seems my reputation has been ruined, though I did nothing to deserve it." "I am sorry," Asher said, and he sounded genuinely distressed. "I did not think about that. I just wanted to help you, and instead I made things worse." "You gave me freedom," Delilah said firmly. "That is not nothing. I will figure something out." He shifted his weight, clearly wrestling with something. "I have a proposition for you," he said finally. "I have a small ranch about 10 miles outside of town. Nothing fancy, just a few hundred acres and some cattle. I lost my hired hand last month when he decided to try his luck in the Colorado silver mines. I need someone to help with the cooking and the housework and the chickens and garden. It would be honest work, and I would pay you fair wages, $30 a month plus room and board. You would have your own room, complete privacy. I would not. That is, there would be no expectation of anything improper." Delilah stared at him, trying to read his intentions. "You want to hire me as a housekeeper?" "Yes, if you are willing." "I know it is not ideal, given that everyone already thinks." He ran a hand through his dark hair, frustrated. "But at least you would have work and a roof over your head and a chance to save some money. And maybe, after a while, when things die down, you could come back to town and find something else if you wanted." It was a generous offer, perhaps too generous. Delilah knew she should be suspicious, but when she looked into Asher's eyes, she saw only sincerity and a genuine desire to help. More than that, she saw loneliness, the same aching loneliness that lived in her own chest. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked softly. "Because I cannot stand by and watch someone suffer when I have the means to help," he said simply. "Because you remind me of my sister, and I failed her, and I do not want to fail again. Because—" he met her eyes. "Because you have courage and dignity even when the world has taken everything from you, and that is rare and precious." Delilah felt something warm unfurl in her chest, something she had not felt in years. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of trust. "All right," she said. "I will take the job, but I will earn my wages fairly. I am a hard worker, Mr. Vaughn." "I do not doubt it," he said, and his smile transformed his whole face, making him look younger and almost boyish. "And please call me Asher." "Asher," she repeated, liking the way his name felt in her mouth. "Then you should call me Delilah." "Delilah," he said, and something in the way he said it made her shiver despite the heat. They left for his ranch the next morning in a sturdy wagon pulled by 2 horses. Rosa packed them food for the journey and gave Delilah a knowing look that made her blush, though nothing improper had happened or would happen. As they rode out of Santa Fe, Delilah felt like she was leaving her old life behind, all the pain and humiliation and fear, and heading toward something new. The ranch was small but well kept, with a modest house built of adobe and wood, a barn, a chicken coop, and a corral where several horses grazed. The land stretched out in all directions, scrub and grass dotted with cattle, with the mountains rising purple and majestic in the distance. "It is not much," Asher said as he helped her down from the wagon, "but it is honest and it is mine. Well, ours, I suppose, if you are going to be working here." "It is beautiful," Delilah said honestly. After the cramped boarding house, and before that the tiny shack she had shared with Thomas, the open space felt like a gift. He showed her the house, which was sparsely furnished but clean. There were 2 bedrooms, a main room with a fireplace and a table, and a kitchen area. "That is your room," he said, pointing to the smaller bedroom. "I am in the other one. There is a lock on your door if you want it." "Thank you," Delilah said, though she was beginning to believe she did not need to fear him. Over the following days and weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Delilah rose early to make breakfast, tend the chickens and collect eggs, work in the garden that had been neglected and needed coaxing back to life, and prepare the midday and evening meals. Asher worked with the cattle, mended fences, broke horses, and did the 100 other tasks that ranching required. They spoke little at first, both shy and uncertain, but gradually they began to talk over meals. She learned that he had come to New Mexico from Texas 3 years ago, after his sister's death, needing to start over somewhere far from the memories. He had worked as a ranch hand, saved every penny, and finally bought this small spread of his own. He was 27 years old, had never been married, and preferred the company of horses to most people. "They are more honest," he said with a wry smile. "A horse will never lie to you about what it is feeling." "Some people are honest too," Delilah said quietly. "Some," he agreed, his eyes on her. "But they are rare." She told him about her childhood on the Kansas farm, about her parents who had died of fever when she was 17, about Thomas who had seemed so charming and promising, but had turned out to be neither. She did not tell him about the darker parts of her marriage, the nights when Thomas came home drunk and angry. But she suspected Asher guessed anyway from the way she sometimes flinched at sudden movements. "You deserved better," he said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sun set in a blaze of orange and gold. "I know that now," Delilah said. "For a long time, I thought maybe I did not. Maybe I had done something to deserve his treatment. But I have had time to think, and I realize that his choices were his own. I did not make him gamble or drink or hurt me. He did those things himself." "That takes wisdom to understand," Asher said. "Many people never reach that conclusion." "What about you?" Delilah asked. "Do you blame yourself for your sister?" His jaw tightened. "Every day. Tell me what happened," she said gently. "If you want to." He was silent for so long she thought he would not answer. Then, in a low voice, he began to speak. "Her name was Annabeth. She was 8 years younger than me, and after our parents died when I was 20 and she was 12, I was supposed to take care of her. But I was young and stupid and thought I could make quick money gambling. I lost everything, including our parents' house. We ended up in a town in Texas where I worked as a ranch hand, and she had to find work too. She went to work in a saloon." Delilah heard all the pain in those words, everything he was not saying. "She hated it," Asher continued. "She hated what she had to do to survive. And I hated myself for putting her in that position, but I could not seem to get ahead, could not save enough to get us out. And then one night, there was a fight in the saloon and she was caught in the crossfire. Shot by accident. She died in my arms, telling me it was not my fault, but I knew it was. If I had been a better brother, a better man, she never would have been there in the first place." "Oh, Asher," Delilah whispered, her eyes filling with tears. She reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. I am so sorry." He looked down at their joined hands, and she saw wetness on his cheeks in the fading light. "When I saw you on that platform," he said roughly, "standing there so brave while those men bid on you like you were nothing, I saw Annabeth. I saw the chance I did not have with her. The chance to save someone. I know it does not bring her back. I know it does not change what happened, but I had to try." "You did save me," Delilah said firmly. "You gave me hope when I had none. You gave me a future. That matters, Asher, it matters so much." He turned to look at her then, really look at her, and something passed between them in that moment, something electric and profound. His eyes dropped to her lips and she held her breath, wondering if he would kiss her, hoping he would. But instead he pulled his hand gently from hers and stood. "It is getting late," he said, his voice strained. "We should get some rest." Delilah felt a pang of disappointment but understood. Whatever was growing between them was fragile and new, and it needed time. "Good night, Asher," she said softly. "Good night, Delilah." As summer turned to fall, Delilah found herself falling in love with the ranch and with the man who owned it. She loved the way Asher moved, confident and capable, whether he was roping a calf or repairing a fence. She loved his quiet strength, the way he was gentle with the animals and with her. She loved his rare smiles and even rarer laughs, which she began to coax out of him more and more. She could see that he was attracted to her too, in the way his eyes followed her movements, the way he always made sure she was comfortable and safe, the way he sometimes leaned close when they were working side by side, and she could feel the heat of him. But he never crossed any lines, never took advantage, and she respected him even more for it. One October afternoon, they were in the barn together when a storm blew in suddenly, as they often did in New Mexico. The wind howled and rain lashed the roof, and thunder boomed so loud it shook the walls. Delilah, who had always been frightened of storms since she was a child, let out a small gasp as lightning lit up the barn interior. "It is all right," Asher said, moving closer. "We are safe in here." "I know," Delilah said, embarrassed by her fear. "I have just never liked storms." Another crack of thunder made her jump, and then Asher's arms were around her, pulling her close. She pressed her face against his chest, feeling his heart beat strong and steady beneath her cheek, and felt safe for the first time since the storm began. "I have got you," he murmured into her hair. "You are safe." They stood like that as the storm raged outside, wrapped in each other's arms. When the thunder finally began to fade and the rain slowed to a gentle patter, Delilah pulled back slightly to look up at him. His arms were still around her waist, and hers were around his neck, and his face was so close she could see the ring of darker gray around his blue-gray irises. "Delilah," he breathed, and then his lips were on hers. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning, giving her room to pull away if she wanted. But she did not want to pull away. She wanted this, wanted him, with an intensity that surprised her. She kissed him back, pouring months of longing and hope and emotion into it, and felt him respond, his arms tightening around her, the kiss deepening. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Asher rested his forehead against hers. "I am sorry," he said. "I should not have done that. You work for me, and I do not want you to feel obligated or pressured." "Stop," Delilah said, pressing her fingers to his lips. "I wanted you to kiss me. I have wanted you to kiss me for weeks now." He pulled her fingers away so he could speak. "I have wanted to kiss you since the day I first saw you standing on that platform, looking so beautiful and fierce. But I did not want you to think I bought you for that reason. I did not want you to feel like you owed me anything." "I know that," Delilah said. "You have shown me nothing but respect and kindness. But Asher, I do not feel obligated. What I feel is, I am falling in love with you. Maybe I have been falling since that first day. I do not know when it started, but I know it is real." "Delilah," he said again, and this time her name was a prayer. "I love you too. I think I have loved you from the moment you looked at me with those brave eyes and refused to cry even though you were terrified." "Then stop holding back," she whispered. "Stop treating me like I might break. I am stronger than I look." He smiled then, that beautiful smile that transformed his whole face. "I know you are. You are the strongest person I have ever met." He kissed her again, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. They lost themselves in each other there in the barn while the rain fell soft and steady outside, washing the world clean. That night, after a quiet dinner where they kept stealing glances at each other and smiling like fools, Asher took her hand across the table. "I know this is fast," he said. "I know we have only known each other a few months, but I do not want to waste time or pretend I do not feel what I feel. I love you, Delilah Hayes. I want to build a life with you, not as my employee but as my partner, my equal. Will you marry me?" Delilah felt joy burst through her like sunshine. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I will marry you, Asher Vaughn. I love you so much." He came around the table and pulled her into his arms, kissing her breathless, and she thought that this man who had saved her in every way a person could be saved was now hers, and she was his, and nothing had ever felt so right. They were married 2 weeks later by the priest in Santa Fe, with Rosa and a few other friends they had made as witnesses. Delilah wore a new dress of deep blue that brought out her eyes, and Asher wore his best suit, and when he said his vows his voice was strong and sure. "I promise to love you and honor you all the days of my life," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "I promise to be the man you deserve, to work hard for our future, to stand by your side through whatever comes. You are my heart, Delilah. You are my home." She could barely speak through her tears. "I promise to love you with everything I am," she managed. "To be your partner and your friend, to build this life with you, to show you every day that you are worthy of love and happiness. You saved me, Asher, but you also taught me how to save myself. I will never forget that." When the priest pronounced them husband and wife and Asher kissed her, the small crowd cheered, and Delilah felt like her heart might burst with happiness. Their wedding night was tender and sweet. Asher so careful with her, washing away the painful memories of her first marriage with gentleness and passion. He made her feel cherished and beautiful and desired in all the right ways, and when she fell asleep in his arms, she knew she had finally found the home she had been searching for all her life. The months that followed were the happiest Delilah had ever known. They worked the ranch together, true partners in every sense. Asher taught her to ride properly, not just sitting in a wagon but truly riding, and she felt free and powerful racing across the land on horseback. She expanded the garden and started selling vegetables in town, bringing in extra money. They saved and planned and dreamed together. One spring afternoon, nearly a year after they had married, Delilah realized she had missed her monthly courses twice. She had been feeling tired and queasy in the mornings, and when she went to the doctor in Santa Fe, he confirmed what she had suspected. She was going to have a baby. She rode home in a daze, terrified and thrilled all at once. Her experience with pregnancy had been limited to watching other women, and she knew it could be dangerous. But more than the fear was excitement. She was going to have Asher's child, a baby made from their love. She found him in the corral working with a young horse. When he saw her face, he immediately climbed over the fence and came to her. "What is wrong?" he asked, concern written all over his features. "Did something happen in town?" "Nothing is wrong," she said, taking his hands. "Asher, I am pregnant. We are going to have a baby." For a moment he just stared at her, processing. Then his face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. He let out a whoop of joy and picked her up, spinning her around before setting her down carefully. "We are going to have a baby," he repeated, wonder in his voice. He placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "Our baby." "Are you happy?" Delilah asked, though she could see the answer in his eyes. "Happy does not even begin to cover it," he said. "I am terrified and thrilled and so grateful. You have given me everything, Delilah. A home, love, and now this. How did I get so lucky?" "We both got lucky," she said, pulling him down for a kiss. "We found each other. The pregnancy was not easy." Delilah was sick for the first several months, and as she grew larger, everything became more difficult. But Asher was patient and attentive, taking over many of her chores without complaint, making sure she rested and ate well. He read to her in the evenings, his hand on her belly feeling the baby kick, and talked to their child through her skin. "You are going to have the best mother in the world," he told the baby one night. "She is brave and strong and kind, and she is going to teach you to be all those things too. And I am going to do my best to be a good father, to give you the life I could not give my sister. You are going to be so loved, little one, so very loved." Delilah cried happy tears listening to him, feeling the baby move under his palm as if responding to his voice. In December, as snow began to fall on the mountains, her labor began. It was long and difficult, and there were moments when both she and Asher were terrified. But Rosa had come to help, and the midwife from town, and together they coached her through it. Finally, after nearly 20 hours, she gave birth to a healthy baby girl with dark hair and her father's blue-gray eyes. Asher wept openly when the midwife placed the baby in his arms. "She is perfect," he breathed. "Delilah, she is absolutely perfect. What should we name her?" Delilah asked, exhausted but glowing with joy. Asher looked down at his daughter, then at his wife. "I would like to name her Annabeth after my sister, if that is all right with you." "I think that is beautiful," Delilah said softly. "Annabeth Vaughn. She will carry on her aunt's name and hopefully have a much happier life." "She will," Asher promised. "I will make sure of it." True to his word, Asher was a devoted father. He doted on little Annabeth, walking her around the ranch in his arms, singing to her in his surprisingly good voice, changing diapers without complaint. Delilah watched him with their daughter and fell even more in love with him, if that was possible. As Annabeth grew from infant to toddler, the ranch prospered. Word had spread about the quality of their beef and horses, and they were able to expand, hiring 2 ranch hands to help with the work. Delilah's garden became famous in Santa Fe, and she sold not just vegetables but also preserves and baked goods. They were building something real and lasting, a legacy for their daughter. When Annabeth was 3, Delilah became pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, and 9 months later she gave birth to a son they named August, after Asher's father. The boy had his mother's auburn hair and a sunny disposition that brought laughter to the entire household. Their family complete, Asher and Delilah settled into the beautiful rhythm of their life together. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. They built a larger house to accommodate their growing children, with a real parlor and indoor plumbing that was still rare in the territory. They invested in better stock and better land, and by the time Annabeth was 10 and August was 7, the Vaughn Ranch was one of the most successful in the region. But more important than the material success was the love that filled their home. Asher never forgot where they had come from, the auction platform where he had first seen Delilah, the choice he had made to set her free. He taught their children to value freedom and kindness and hard work. He taught them that people were not property, that love was about choice and respect and partnership. Delilah flourished in ways she had never imagined possible. The frightened woman on that platform was a distant memory, replaced by a confident, capable rancher's wife and mother. She served on the church board, helped organize schools in the territory, and was known throughout Santa Fe as a woman of integrity and compassion. She sometimes thought about Thomas and the pain of her first marriage, but not with bitterness anymore. That suffering had led her to Asher, and she would not trade her current life for anything. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Asher took Delilah to the top of a hill on their property that overlooked the entire ranch. It was sunset, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold, and from their vantage point they could see everything they had built together. "You remember the day we met?" Asher asked, his arm around her waist. "Every detail," Delilah said. "I was terrified and hopeless, and then you appeared like some kind of guardian angel." "I was no angel," Asher said with a smile. "Just a man who could not stand by and do nothing." "You were everything I needed," Delilah said, turning to face him. "You gave me freedom, Asher, but more than that, you showed me what love really is, what partnership really is. You gave me a life beyond anything I dreamed possible." "You gave me just as much," Asher said seriously. "You gave me a reason to forgive myself, a purpose beyond just existing. You gave me a family and a home and love that I never thought I deserved. You made me want to be a better man, and I hope I have been, for you and for our children." "You have," Delilah said, tears in her eyes. "You are the best man I know, Asher Vaughn." He kissed her then, sweet and deep, and she thought about that day 15 years ago when he had torn up the bill of sale that declared he owned her. He had given her freedom, but she had chosen to give him her heart, and that choice had made all the difference. Below them, they could see Annabeth and August playing in the yard, their laughter floating up on the evening breeze. The cattle grazed peacefully. Smoke curled from the chimney of their home. Everything they had worked for, everything they had built, stretched out before them. "I love you," Asher murmured against her lips. "I will love you until the day I die and beyond." "I love you too," Delilah said, "my rescuer, my partner, my heart." They stood together on that hill as the sun set, two people who had found each other in the cruelest of circumstances and turned it into something beautiful. The bidding had climbed cruel and high that day in Santa Fe, but Asher had outbid them all just to hand her freedom back. And in doing so, he had set them both free in ways neither could have imagined. The years continued to pass, marked by both joy and sorrow as all lives are. They lost Rosa, who had been like a mother to Delilah, when she passed peacefully in her sleep at the age of 74. They mourned her deeply, but celebrated the full life she had lived. They weathered droughts and harsh winters, times when money was tight and the future uncertain, but they always faced these challenges together, their love and commitment never wavering. Annabeth grew into a beautiful young woman who inherited her father's sense of justice and her mother's compassion. At 19, she fell in love with a teacher who had come to Santa Fe from Boston, a kind and educated man named Samuel Wright, who treated her with the same respect Asher had always shown Delilah. When Samuel asked for Annabeth's hand in marriage, Asher gave his blessing with tears in his eyes, knowing his daughter had found a partner worthy of her. August became a skilled rancher like his father, but he also had a gift for breaking horses that bordered on magical. He could gentle the wildest Mustang with patience and kindness, and by the time he was 21, he had built a reputation throughout the territory. Men came from as far as Texas and Colorado to have August Vaughn train their horses. One evening, when Annabeth was preparing for her wedding and August was preparing to buy his own small ranch nearby, Asher and Delilah sat on their porch watching the sunset as they had done countless times over the years. "We did well, did we not?" Asher said quietly. "We did," Delilah agreed, her hand in his. "Our children are happy and good people. We have a successful ranch and a good life. We found each other against all odds. Do you ever think about that day? Asher asked. The auction. Sometimes, Delilah admitted. Usually when I need to remind myself how far we have come. It was the worst day of my life, Asher, but it was also the day I met you. So even that terrible thing led to something wonderful. I think about it too, Asher said. I think about how close I came to just walking away, to telling myself it was not my problem, that I could not afford to throw away $500. But something made me stay. Some voice inside me said that this was important, that you were important. I am so grateful I listened. So am I, Delilah said. She looked at him, at the silver in his hair now, the lines around his eyes from years of squinting in the sun, the calluses on his hands from a lifetime of hard work. He was 57 years old, still strong and capable, still the most handsome man she had ever seen. You are still my hero, you know, after all these years. And you are still the bravest woman I know, Asher said, after all these years. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. The ranch was quiet except for the usual evening sounds of animals settling down, the distant lowing of cattle, the whinny of a horse. It was peace, hard-won and deeply appreciated. Annabeth's wedding was a grand affair by Santa Fe standards, held in the church with what seemed like half the territory in attendance. Delilah cried as she watched her daughter walk down the aisle on Asher's arm, both of them beaming with joy and pride. When the priest asked who gave this woman to be married, Asher said in a clear, strong voice, "Her mother and I do with our blessing and our love." Later, at the reception, Asher danced with Annabeth while Delilah watched. She saw him lean down and whisper something in their daughter's ear, saw Annabeth nod and hug him tight. When the dance ended and Asher returned to Delilah's side, she asked what he had said. "I told her that she should never settle for less than she deserves," Asher said. "That she should always remember she has value and worth, and that Samuel is a lucky man to have her love. I told her that her mother and I will always be here for her, no matter what." "That is perfect," Delilah said, wiping away tears. "You are a good father, Asher Vaughn." "I try to be," he said. "I had to be after everything. I had to give our children the life my sister never got to have." "You did," Delilah assured him. "Annabeth is living proof of that." A few months after Annabeth's wedding, August announced that he was courting a young woman named Maria Lopez, the daughter of a successful rancher from the southern part of the territory. She was intelligent and beautiful, fluent in both Spanish and English, and she shared August's love of horses. When August brought her to meet his parents, Delilah liked her immediately, recognizing in Maria the same strength and kindness she valued in herself. "She is wonderful," Delilah told August after Maria had left. "I am so happy for you, son." "She reminds me of you, mother," August said with a grin. "Strong-willed and not afraid to speak her mind. I figure if father has been happy with a woman like that for 30 years, I will probably be happy too." Asher laughed. "Smart boy." "Yes, marry a woman who will challenge you and make you better. That is the secret to a good marriage." When August and Maria married the following spring, it was another joyous occasion. The families merged happily, and soon August was managing not just his own small ranch, but also helping Asher and Delilah with theirs. Maria proved to be as skilled with horses as her husband, and together they built a thriving horse breeding operation. As Delilah approached her 60th birthday, she began to slow down a bit, content to let the younger generation take over more of the day-to-day work. She spent her time with her growing number of grandchildren, for both Annabeth and August had blessed them with several. She taught her granddaughters to garden and cook and stand up for themselves. She taught her grandsons to treat women with respect and work hard and be honest. Asher, too, began to step back from the hardest ranch work, though he still rose early every morning and made his rounds, checking on the cattle and horses, mending what needed mending. He was slower now, his joints stiff from decades of physical labor, but he was content. He had built something lasting, a legacy not just of land and cattle but of love and integrity. One evening, as they celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and friends, Asher stood to make a toast. 40 years ago, he began, his voice still strong despite his age, I made the best decision of my life. I met a woman who was in a terrible situation, and I did the only thing that felt right. I set her free. But what I did not know then was that in freeing her, I was also freeing myself. Delilah, you have been my partner, my best friend, my love for 4 decades. You have given me a family and a home and a purpose. You have made me a better man than I ever thought I could be. I love you more today than I did on our wedding day, and I will love you for whatever time we have left. Delilah was crying openly now, as were most of the women in the room and even some of the men. She stood and went to Asher, kissing him softly. You saved me, she said loud enough for everyone to hear. But you also showed me how to be strong. You gave me freedom, and then you gave me love, and I am so grateful for every single day we have had together. Here is to 40 more years. Everyone laughed and cheered, knowing that 40 more years was unlikely at their age but appreciating the sentiment. They raised their glasses and drank to love and family, and the beautiful life Asher and Delilah had built. As the party wound down and their children and grandchildren began to leave, Delilah and Asher stood on their porch one more time, looking out at the land they had tended for so many years. Do you have any regrets? Delilah asked. Not a single one, Asher said immediately. Every choice I made, every hard day, every struggle, it all led me to you and to this life. How could I regret any of that? I feel the same way, Delilah said. Even the pain of my first marriage, even that awful day on the auction platform, they were necessary to get me here. I would not change anything. We have been blessed, Asher said simply. We have, Delilah agreed. They went inside together to the home they had built, to the bed they had shared for 40 years, and held each other as they fell asleep, grateful for another day together. The years continued to pass more quickly now, as they do when one gets older. Asher and Delilah watched their grandchildren grow and begin to have children of their own, making them great-grandparents. The ranch continued under August's capable management, and Annabeth and Samuel had built a good life in Santa Fe, where Samuel had become the superintendent of schools, and Annabeth worked tirelessly for women's rights and education. When Delilah was 70 years old, she fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. For several days, Asher barely left her bedside, holding her hand, reading to her, praying with her. Their children came to visit, fearing the worst, but Delilah was not ready to leave yet. She fought her way back to health with the same determination she had shown all her life, and by spring she was recovered, if a bit frailer than before. You scared me, Asher told her when she was finally well enough to sit on the porch again, wrapped in blankets. I scared myself, Delilah admitted, but I am not done yet, Asher. I have more living to do with you. Good, he said, kissing her forehead, because I am not ready to let you go. They had 3 more good years together, years filled with love and laughter and family. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, a remarkable achievement, with a huge party that brought people from all over the territory. Former ranch hands, town merchants, church friends, and of course, all their family came to honor the couple who had become something of a legend in Santa Fe. During the celebration, A young reporter from the Santa Fe newspaper asked if he could interview them about their remarkable love story. Asher and Delilah agreed, and they sat together, still holding hands after all these years, and told their tale. "I saw her standing on that auction platform," Asher said, his eyes distant with memory. "And I knew I could not let her be bought like property. The bidding climbed cruel and high, but I outbid them all, not because I wanted to own her, but because I wanted to set her free." "And he did," Delilah added, her voice soft but strong. "He bought me and then immediately gave me my freedom, no strings attached, no expectations. It was the most selfless act of kindness I have ever witnessed." "But you did not leave," the reporter noted. "No," Delilah said, smiling at Asher. "I did not leave because I fell in love with him, because he showed me what real love looks like, what real partnership means. We built this life together as equals, and it has been the greatest gift." "Any advice for young couples?" the reporter asked. Asher and Delilah looked at each other, communicating in that wordless way long-married couples do. "Choose each other every day," Asher said finally. "Love is not just a feeling, it is a choice you make over and over. Choose kindness, choose respect, choose to be partners in every sense of the word. And never forget where you came from," Delilah added. "Remember the hard times because they make you appreciate the good times. Remember that you are both human and imperfect, and give each other grace. And most importantly, never stop talking to each other. Communication is everything." The article ran the following week, and people all over New Mexico read the story of the cowboy who had outbid everyone at an auction just to hand a woman her freedom back, and how that act of kindness had blossomed into a 50-year love story. Letters poured in from people who were inspired, moved, encouraged by their tale. But Asher and Delilah paid little attention to their newfound fame. They were content with their quiet life, surrounded by family, secure in the knowledge that they had lived well and loved deeply. On a warm evening in late summer, when Delilah was 73 and Asher was 78, they sat on their porch as they had done thousands of times before. The sun was setting in a spectacular display of color, painting the mountains gold and purple and pink. Their hands were clasped together, weathered and age-spotted but still strong in their connection. "This is a good life," Asher said quietly. "The best life," Delilah agreed. "I love you, Delilah Hayes Vaughn. I have loved you from the first moment I saw you, and I will love you beyond this life into whatever comes next." "And I love you, Asher Vaughn," Delilah said, tears streaming down her face, though she was not sad, only overwhelmed with gratitude. "You are my savior, my partner, my heart. Thank you for choosing me that day. Thank you for setting me free. Thank you for loving me." "Thank you for letting me," Asher said simply. They sat together as the sun dipped below the horizon, as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, as the world grew quiet and peaceful around them. They had started with an auction, with cruel bidding and desperate circumstances, but they had created something beautiful from that ugliness. They had built a family, a legacy, a love story that would be told for generations. And as they sat there, hand in hand, surrounded by the land they had worked and the life they had built, they knew with absolute certainty that every struggle, every hardship, every moment of pain had been worth it, because it had led them to each other and to this perfect, peaceful moment. The bidding had climbed cruel and high that day in Santa Fe 51 years ago. Asher Vaughn had outbid them all just to hand Delilah Hayes her freedom back. But in doing so, he had given them both something infinitely more precious than freedom alone. He had given them the chance to choose each other, to build a life together, to love deeply and completely. And they had seized that chance with both hands and never let go. As the final light faded from the sky and the stars blazed overhead in all their glory, Asher and Delilah Vaughn sat together in the home they had built, surrounded by the legacy they had created, secure in the love they had nurtured for over 50 years. They had faced every challenge together, weathered every storm, and emerged stronger each time. Their children were successful and happy, living lives of integrity and purpose. Their grandchildren and great-grandchildren carried on the values Asher and Delilah had instilled, the understanding that every person has worth and deserves respect, that love is about choice and partnership, that kindness and courage can change the world. The ranch would continue for generations, a testament to their hard work and dedication. But more than the physical legacy, they left behind a story, a reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, hope and love can prevail. That one act of selfless kindness can change not just one life but many. That the choice to do the right thing, even when it costs you something, is always worth making. As they finally rose to go inside for the night, moving slowly with age but still together, still supporting each other, Delilah paused to look back at the land one more time. "Beautiful, is it not?" she said. "You have always been the beautiful one," Asher replied, making her laugh. "Flatterer," she accused fondly. "Truth-teller," he corrected, kissing her cheek. They went inside, to their warm home filled with memories and love, and prepared for bed as they had done thousands of times before. But tonight felt special somehow, blessed, as if the universe was acknowledging everything they had built together. In bed, Delilah curled against Asher's side as she had for over 50 years, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. They fit together perfectly, two pieces of the same whole. "Asher," she murmured drowsily. "Yes, my love. If I had to do it all over again, every hardship, every struggle, even that awful auction, I would do it in a heartbeat, because it led me to you. And I would bid on you again," Asher said softly, "and set you free again, and hope like hell you would choose to stay with me again. Because you are the best thing that ever happened to me, Delilah, the very best thing." "We are the lucky ones," Delilah whispered. "The luckiest," Asher agreed. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, two souls who had found each other against impossible odds and built a love that had stood the test of time. Outside, the stars shone bright over the New Mexico landscape, watching over the ranch and the family sleeping peacefully within. Years later, when both Asher and Delilah had finally passed on, peacefully and within months of each other as devoted couples sometimes do, their story lived on. Their children told it to their grandchildren, who told it to their children. The reporter's article was reprinted in newspapers across the West. Books were written about the infamous Santa Fe auction of 1878 and the cowboy who had spent his entire savings just to set a woman free. But the real legacy was not in the retellings or the articles or the books. It was in the lives they had touched, the family they had raised, the values they had instilled. It was in the ranch that still bore the Vaughn name, now run by great-great-grandchildren who took pride in their heritage. It was in the countless people who heard their story and were inspired to choose kindness, to stand up for what was right, to believe in love even when circumstances seemed impossible. Annabeth and August, before they too passed on in their own old age, made sure that the full story was preserved. They commissioned a painting of their parents, showing Asher and Delilah as they had been in their prime, standing together on the land they loved, looking at each other with such obvious devotion that anyone who saw it could feel the love radiating from the canvas. The painting hung in the main house of the ranch, and every Vaughn child grew up hearing the story of their ancestors, the woman who was nearly sold at auction, and the man who bought her only to set her free, and how that act of courage and kindness had started it all. In Santa Fe, a historical marker was eventually placed in the plaza where the auction had taken place, commemorating not the shameful practice of debt bondage, but the triumph of human dignity and love over cruelty and despair. It told the story of Delilah Hayes and Asher Vaughn, and visitors would stop to read it, touched by the tale of love born from freedom. The marker read, "On this spot in June 1878, Delilah Hayes was auctioned to settle debts. Asher Vaughn outbid all others and immediately freed her, asking nothing in return. Their subsequent marriage lasted 53 years and produced a legacy of family, prosperity, and love that continues to this day." Their story reminds us that even in dark times, kindness and courage can change the world. But perhaps the greatest testament to their love was the simplest one. In the small cemetery on the ranch, two headstones sat side by side under an ancient cottonwood tree. The inscriptions were straightforward. Asher Vaughn, 1851–1929. Beloved husband, father, grandfather, he chose kindness. Delilah Hayes Vaughn, 1856–1930. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, she chose courage. And beneath both inscriptions, added by their children, a final line that said it all, together, they chose love. Visitors to the ranch, family members coming to pay respects, even strangers who had heard the story and wanted to see where it had all begun, would stand before those headstones and feel something shift inside them. They would think about their own lives, their own choices, their own chances to choose kindness and courage and love. And in that way, Asher and Delilah's story continued to change lives, continued to inspire, continued to remind people of what was possible when you had the courage to do the right thing, even when it cost you something, even when the outcome was uncertain. The ranch itself thrived for generations, always run by Vaughn descendants, always maintaining the values that Asher and Delilah had established. It became known not just for quality cattle and horses, but for fair treatment of workers, for integrity in business dealings, for the way the family treated everyone with respect and dignity. August's great-grandson, also named Asher, ran the ranch in the 1960s. He had grown up hearing the stories of his ancestors, and he made sure to pass them on to his own children. One evening, sitting on the same porch where the original Asher and Delilah had spent so many evenings, young Asher told his teenage daughter about her great-great-great-grandparents. "The bidding climbed cruel and high that day," he said, repeating the phrase that had become legendary in the family. "But your grandfather Asher outbid them all just to hand her freedom back. He did not want to own her. He wanted to save her. And in the end, they saved each other." His daughter, a bright girl named Grace who was trying to figure out her place in the rapidly changing world of the 1960s, asked, "Do you think people still do things like that? Act selflessly just because it is right?" "I do," young Asher said firmly. "I think there are still people who choose kindness over cruelty, who stand up for what is right even when it is hard. Your great-great-great-grandfather was not special because he was perfect. He was special because when it mattered, when he could have walked away, he chose to help. That is something any of us can do, Grace. Every single day we have chances to choose kindness or cruelty, to help or to look away. The question is, what do we choose?" Grace thought about that for a long time. Eventually, she would become a civil rights lawyer, fighting for justice and equality, carrying on the family legacy in her own way. And when people asked her what inspired her to take on difficult cases, to fight for people who could not fight for themselves, she would tell them about her ancestors, about an auction in Santa Fe in 1878, about a cowboy who chose kindness. The story rippled forward through time, touching lives, changing hearts, reminding people of what love really meant. Not possession or control, but freedom and choice. Not transactions or obligations, but partnership and respect. In the main house on the ranch, now modernized with electricity and running water, but still fundamentally the same home Asher had built over a century ago, the current generation of Vaughns gathered for Sunday dinners. They would sit around the big table, children and grandchildren, and sometimes great-grandchildren, and someone would inevitably point to the painting of Asher and Delilah and ask for the story again. And someone would tell it, the details slightly different each time, but the heart of it always the same. A woman in dire circumstances, a man who chose to help, an act of kindness that cost him everything he had, freedom given freely, with no strings attached. And love, real and lasting love, that grew from respect and admiration and choice. That is what love looks like, the current matriarch of the family, a strong woman in her 70s named Margaret, who was Annabeth's great-granddaughter, would say. Not possession, but freedom. Not obligation, but choice. They chose each other every single day for over 50 years. That is the real miracle of their story. The children would listen, wide-eyed, and carry that story with them as they grew. They would remember it when they fell in love themselves, when they had to make hard choices, when they faced their own opportunities to choose kindness or cruelty. And so the legacy continued, spreading outward like ripples in a pond, touching more and more lives. The story of Asher and Delilah Vaughn became more than just family lore. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that love could triumph over the worst circumstances, that kindness could change everything. Scholars studied their story as an example of resistance to unjust practices in the Old West. Novelists wrote fictionalized versions of their romance. Historians included them in books about daily life in territorial New Mexico. But for the Vaughn family, they were simply ancestors who had lived with courage and love, who had built something lasting, who had shown by example what it meant to live with integrity. The ranch itself, after nearly a century and a half, was eventually donated to become a historical site and working ranch museum. The Vaughn descendants, numerous by then and spread across the country, agreed that this was what Asher and Delilah would have wanted. Their story preserved not in a dusty archive, but in a living place where people could come and experience what life had been like, where children could learn about history in a tangible way. The museum opened in 2025, carefully restored to look as it might have in the 1880s and 1890s when Asher and Delilah were in their prime. Visitors could tour the house, see the original furniture and items that had belonged to the family, walk the land, and learn about ranching in the Old West. But the centerpiece of the museum was the story itself, told through photographs, letters, and artifacts. The torn pieces of the bill of sale that Asher had cut up, carefully preserved by Delilah all those years, their wedding certificate, letters they had written to each other during the rare times they were apart, photographs showing them aging together, always with joy evident in their faces, and in the main room, that painting of them in their prime, looking at each other with such love that it took visitors' breath away. Thousands of people came every year to hear the story, to walk where Asher and Delilah had walked, to be inspired by a love that had transcended terrible circumstances. Couples came on their anniversaries. Parents brought children to teach them about courage and kindness. History buffs came to learn about the Old West, and everyone left touched by the story in some way, because ultimately it was a story about the best of human nature, about choosing to do the right thing even when it was hard, about love that was freely given and freely chosen. about building something lasting through hard work and dedication, about partnership and respect and unwavering commitment. It was a story that needed to be told and retold, especially in times when the world seemed dark and hope seemed scarce, because it reminded people that one person could make a difference. That one act of kindness could change everything. That love was stronger than circumstance. The bidding had climbed cruel and high that day in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in June of 1878. But Asher Vaughn had outbid them all just to hand Delilah Hayes her freedom back. And in doing so, he had set in motion a love story that would echo through generations, inspiring countless people to choose kindness, to believe in love, to stand up for what was right. That was their true legacy. Not the ranch or the money or the material success, though those things mattered. Their true legacy was the example they set, the values they lived by, the love they shared so completely that it could still be felt nearly 2 centuries later by anyone who took the time to listen to their story. And so Asher and Delilah Vaughn lived on, not just in the history books or the museum displays, but in the hearts of everyone who heard their tale and chose to believe, as they had believed, that love and kindness and courage could change the world. Their story was complete, their ending happy, their legacy secure. They had lived fully, loved deeply, and left the world better than they found it. What more could anyone ask for in the end? That was the true moral of their tale. Not just that love could overcome adversity, though it could. Not just that kindness mattered, though it did. But that every single person has the power to change someone's life, to choose compassion over cruelty, to see the humanity in others even when the world treats them as less than human. Asher had seen Delilah's humanity when she stood on that auction platform. He had recognized her courage and dignity and worth, and he had acted on that recognition, not expecting anything in return, but simply because it was the right thing to do. That was the lesson. That was the gift. That was what their story had to teach. And as visitors to the museum stood before that painting, reading the placard that told their story, something shifted inside them. They walked out into the New Mexico sunshine thinking about their own lives, their own choices, their own opportunities to make a difference. They thought about the people in their lives who needed help, who needed kindness, who needed someone to see their worth. And maybe, just maybe, they chose to be that person, to offer help, to show kindness, to recognize worth. And in that way, Asher and Delilah's legacy continued to grow and spread, touching lives they would never know, inspiring actions they would never see, but making the world incrementally better with each person who heard their story and chose to follow their example. That was the power of their love. Not just that it had sustained them through 53 years of marriage, not just that it had built a family and a ranch and a legacy, but that it continued to inspire, continued to teach, continued to change lives long after they were gone. The bidding climbed cruel and high. The cowboy outbid them all just to hand her freedom back. And from that one act of selfless courage grew a love story that would never truly end, because it lived on in everyone who heard it and chose to believe in the power of kindness, the strength of love, and the possibility of hope, even in the darkest circumstances. That was their story. That was their gift to the world. And it was a gift that kept on giving generation after generation, heart after heart, life after life, perfect and complete, just as their love had been.